The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. That is who the Democrat Party is catering to. They don't stand for anything except for catering to their far-left base, which, as I said, includes anti-Semites, includes Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals who they want to let off freely to roam in American streets.
What happens when the voice of the White House begins to publicly unravel? In the corridors of American power, words are meant to carry weight, precision, and purpose. But in recent days, those words have been replaced by chaos. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, once seen as the polished communicator for President Donald Trump's administration, has become a symbol of something darker. A descent into public meltdown, captured moment by moment in front of the nation. The shift began subtly. Her tone grew sharper, her patience thinner. But it was during one Fox News appearance that the facade of professionalism finally cracked. Sitting before the cameras, her expression calm, her smile unwavering, Leavitt delivered a statement that stunned even her most sympathetic audience. She declared that the Democratic Party, half of the nation's political fabric, was composed of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. The host's reaction was immediate but wordless. Silence filled the studio. The tension hung thick in the air as their smiles faded. For a moment, the broadcast itself seemed to hesitate. And then, with visible unease, the host pivoted, desperate to move away from her remarks. Even on a network known for partisan loyalty, the discomfort was unmistakable. The backlash outside the studio was fierce. Across the country, political commentators, journalists, and ordinary citizens watched the clip in disbelief. Among them was House Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who responded with condemnation and concern. He described her remarks as reckless, divisive, and dangerous. He spoke of the growing wave of political violence, the spreading climate of hate, and the shocking reality of a White House spokesperson fueling that fire. His words carried both outrage and warning. He called Leavitt's comments a reflection of a government unmoored from its moral compass, a government willing to brand millions of Americans as enemies. But rather than retract or clarify, Karoline Leavitt pressed forward. On social media, her posts multiplied in tone and intensity. She accused Democrats of hypocrisy and weakness. She mocked Hakeem Jeffries personally, calling him an America Last stone-cold loser. Each message felt less like the words of a government official and more like the rants of an online provocateur. Her replies grew unfiltered, emotional, and impulsive. She lashed out at critics, dismissed journalists, and framed every pushback as persecution. Her language revealed frustration, not just with political opponents, but with the very idea of accountability. Observers began to note a pattern. Leavitt's statements no longer followed the rhythm of press discipline. They carried the unrestrained fury of a movement that thrives on outrage. Within hours, it became clear that her meltdown was not a one-time outburst, but a window into the administration's communication strategy. Chaos as message, aggression as identity. Then came the next chapter, the one that shifted her story from controversial to absurd. A reporter from the Huffington Post reached out to the White House for comment about an upcoming Trump-Putin meeting reportedly being planned in Budapest. It was a simple inquiry, one of those routine journalistic questions asked countless times a day in Washington. But this time, the answer defied all expectations. Karoline Leavitt replied with 2 words, "Your mom." The message spread instantly across the political world. Screenshots appeared on social media within minutes. Journalists and politicians alike stared in disbelief. The insult, so childish and out of place, sounded like something from a playground, not the press office of the President of the United States. Even more shocking was the reaction from her superior, Stephen Chung, the White House communications director. Instead of apologizing or walking it back, he doubled down, echoing her response. "Your mom," every time. The exchange sent shockwaves through Washington. The nation's top communication office had turned a basic inquiry into a viral display of mockery. Commentators called it a breakdown of dignity, a collapse of the standards that once defined political communication. Journalist Mehdi Hassan described the episode as proof that the Trump administration's approach to power had abandoned seriousness entirely. He noted that if a Democratic spokesperson someone like Jen Psaki or Karine Jean-Pierre, had ever spoken to a reporter this way, the outrage from the right would have been unrelenting. But within the Trump circle, the insult was celebrated, retweeted, and defended as humor. The behavior, once unthinkable, was now normalized. What would have been a career-ending scandal in another era had become just another day in a White House defined by provocation. Over the next 24 hours, Karoline Leavitt's unraveling became impossible to ignore. News outlets chronicled her statements, her posts, her dismissive tone. Commentators described a press secretary who seemed addicted to confrontation, incapable of reflection, and unwilling to draw any line between truth and theater. Even among Trump's loyal media allies, unease began to show. On Fox News, the host's silence spoke volumes. They did not defend her. They did not laugh along. The same faces that once eagerly amplified every talking point now sat in visible discomfort. The message she had delivered was too toxic to spin. By the end of the day, Leavitt's name was trending across social media, not as a political force, but as a symbol of collapse. The once respected role of press secretary had been reduced to ridicule. The very office that once demanded professionalism and grace now carried the image of mockery and chaos. The transformation was complete. Karoline Leavitt was no longer a spokesperson. She was a spectacle. Every appearance, every post, every insult became a reflection of the deeper decay within the administration itself. A government where outrage was policy and humiliation was power. Behind the smirk and the sound bites lay something more troubling, a total erosion of respect for truth, discourse, and civility. The line between political performance and personal breakdown had vanished. Karoline Leavitt's public dissent became more than a story about a single official. It became a portrait of a movement that had turned cruelty into communication, chaos into currency, and spectacle into governance. Her unraveling was not a scandal confined to headlines. It was a mirror held up to a nation, reflecting what happens when power abandons restraint and replaces it with contempt. Before we start, most of you guys don't subscribe at all, so please subscribe my channel for more latest content. As the lights fade and the screens go dark, her words remain etched in the record. A press secretary representing the White House, smiling into the cameras, declaring half of her own country as enemies. The descent was complete. The unraveling of Karoline Leavitt had become the unraveling of something far greater. The collapse of decency itself inside the walls of American power.